Hey everyone, this is Marcelo Palermo for Epic News. When we are worldwide at over 11 million cases of COVID-19, that is counted cases, not active cases, and in the States over 2.5 million, we are questioning how are we doing, not only in this country but all over the world. And it's important to review, as you know, in this podcast we mix news with historical facts, anthropological facts. And we try to do that because there's a new thing also, a new thing that happened in the old times. We're talking about the Black Plague, bubonic plague, that is. There have been cases of bubonic plague in Mongolia registered today. So what Mongolia did is try to isolate the country, quarantine the whole country, cut nexus and connections with the rest of the world until they can actually see and check what is going on. Of course, bubonic plague is something that we know about and we have ways to contain it. But it is interesting that during the times of COVID-19, we are experiencing now that problem. Now just think about the ancient times. Again, we always recur to look upon the history, upon what happened back in the day. For example, how about the days of Septimius Severus, the first African emperor, and actually the one who disputedly was part black of the Roman Empire, who by, of course, association was also an emperor of Britannia, of Great Britain, of England, back in between 193 to 211 AD of our current era. During those days, one of the things that prevented him in certain expeditions with the ends of expanding the Roman Empire were, well, precisely health problems. Not only his health problems once he passed the barrier of the 60 years of age, because when he was 48, he wasn't an emperor yet, and he was still campaigning for Rome, for the ancient Roman Empire, of course, that is. But during his days as an emperor, his condition had weakened once he hit 60. When he was over the age of 60, he started ailing and having health problems or health-related problems. In many cases, during his administration as a Caesar, as the king who controlled the most powerful empire of the ancient world in the Western world, that was ancient Rome, King Septimius Severus of Caesar Septimius Severus suffered the problems or had to face the problems of plagues and pandemic and epidemic situations in the known world back then. It wasn't something that was only characteristical of his times, because this happened throughout the history of the Roman Empire and other empires as well, and during other times as well. Perhaps everybody has been hearing and knowing and listening recently about the 1918 Spanish flu. The Spanish flu, which ironically didn't hit Spain. It hit actually other places in the world, but it was first discovered by a Spanish journalist and Spanish scientist. That is why it was called Spanish flu. Was arguably one of the worst pandemic situations that the world had to face. So with that said, just imagine what will have happened several hundreds and thousands of years ago, when at the peak of the Roman Empire, there were wars of conquest and moves of troops all over the back then known world, the Mediterranean, all the way to North Africa, all the way to West Germania, all the way to what we know now as the British Islands, all the way to Greece, all the way to the Middle East, and the migrations as well. People has to get to adapt to the new challenges presented by nature. We have been doing that for millennia, or actually as a species and our pre-species, the species that actually preceded us on Earth for millions of years. It is well known that Homo sapiens, or the kind of humans that we eventually came to be, has been walking on Earth since like around between 300,000, 70,000 years ago, and eventually we got to become what we are today. As I said before in different podcasts, we faced different stances during the history or throughout the history of humanity in which we literally faced extinction. 70,000 years ago, 300,000 years ago, 190,000 years ago were pivotal periods in which our population went down to just some thousands. So now, in the face of this pandemic situation that it seems to be rebooting, and we are seeing that despite in certain parts of the world, such as where we're here right now, the United States of America, we are experiencing temperatures of over 100 degrees in the Fahrenheit scale. The virus is not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, we're experiencing peaks of cases in certain states or areas of the United States of America. Right now, the United States of America and the South American country of Brazil are the ones who are suffering the most because of the coronavirus. And again, I was having actually a conversation with experts earlier on today, and we were talking about the numbers. And again, it doesn't come down to the numbers. As I was saying before, the United States of America, over 2.5 million cases, and the many deaths, over or almost 130,000 deaths. We're almost getting there. And of course, in the world, we're talking about more than 11 million cases. We're not talking about the numbers and if the case with the coronavirus is something that we have to be concerned regarding that. What an expert told me today, a scientist who is actually heavily involved into the possibility of developing a vaccine to control COVID-19, is that, let's say we will hit the hypothetical situation he presented, that we will hit the number of people infected or affected by the regular flu or a heavy regular flu with COVID-19, coronavirus 19. The coronavirus disease, novel yet discovered in 2019. What will happen if we're still in the stage of knowledge about what this new novel virus is all about? And the theory and the projection is that if we hit those numbers, say instead of 11 million people having been affected by COVID-19, we will go to over 30 million, 40 million, or 100 million people. What's going to happen is that chances are that number could be doubled or tripled in a matter of 2 or 3 months. And that is exactly what we don't want. Now, if we hit those numbers, once we have pills, vaccines, and determined treatments to control the hit her to very complicated to control and to decipher COVID-19, that will be another situation. So the thing is, when we see what happens with plagues and diseases all through the history of humanity back in the day, and especially knowing that many of those plagues and diseases, as it happens today, came, most of them, from actually what we know now as China, because of different reasons, because of the trade. And back in the day, the precarious conditions of trading actually made that very possible, especially with things such as what we were talking, the Black Plague, or bubonic plague. We see that we have to learn about the exposure, how to cope with it, and the fact that once we have, as we do now in a technologically advanced modern world, once we have figured out how to combat and contain the problem, this health pandemic problem, in this case, the COVID-19 virus, well, we can advance with a firm step, or stepping firmly, and moving forward without the troubles and doubts that we have right now. So again, that was the main point of the argument and the discussion or the conversation I had earlier today with a group of experts regarding COVID-19. Do we focus on the numbers, or do we focus on the investigations and research that are going to eventually lead us towards the vaccine? When I receive information regarding how soon the COVID-19 vaccine might be available, laboratories like Pfizer, combined with other companies such as Bayer, Genesis and other renowned companies in the world of creating vaccines and drugs and remedies for the most poignant health problems in the world were informing, especially Pfizer was reporting that we might have the chance, and this is very hopeful, of having a vaccine for COVID-19 developed by the end of September. So we might be like around 3 months away, or 2.5 months away from having the vaccine. Those are the most hopeful projections, because other projections are talking about probably and arguably all the way to the end of December or the beginning of 2021. That will be January 2021 to have the COVID-19 vaccine ready. One way or the other, what we have to be now is to keep on moving forward with the directives and the alignments of how to live or experience or move forward, living on and keeping on living our lives, adapting to the new reality. That is what I wanted to put in context. And remember, all that we have learned hitherto as humans has to start serving a purpose, the purpose of advancement, of trying to, although we might differ, we might have different ideas, we might not agree on anything, we might not agree on everything. If we don't agree on anything, well, it will be quite complicated to move forward as a species. We might not agree on everything, but we might agree on the things that bring common sense and projection towards a better humanity and a better being, a better human being for the near future, a better human being for this present. For Epic News, this is Marcelo Palermo. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Remember, we are news the intelligent smart way.